John Becker's back on the show. He's communications director for Truth Wins Out. The website's truthwinsout.org. Now, John, last time you were on the show, you were making national media headlines because you went to the Marcus and Michelle Bachmann anti-gay therapy clinic with multiple hidden cameras. You pretended to be a single man who was having some ideas, some attractions to men, and the idea was to see, would they kind of tell you they can make you no longer have these feelings. Is that kind of a good summary?
Yes, that's correct. We wanted to see whether or not a person who came to the clinic seeking to not to become ungay, to become ex-gay, would be offered reparative therapy. That's exactly correct.
And in fact, you recorded with the cameras that is what they were doing there. I mean, you went to how many sessions sessions I use as a very loose term, but how many sessions with a so-called therapist did you go to?
I actually went to 5 of them, but at the very beginning, at the outset of treatment, they told me that it would take, a full course would take 4 to 6 months.
So that would be kind of like the full program, so to speak.
Right. To really dial down and hopefully completely eliminate my attraction to men and build up my attraction to women. And I was explicitly told that at the very least, I would be able to get my homosexual urges down to a manageable level. where I could function, with women, and at the most I could be completely cured of them.
So towards the end of this, after you had all the footage you needed, there were 2 sessions, if I understand correctly, which you canceled. Is that right?
Yes. Well, because it was supposed to take 4 to 6 months, I always booked out a couple of appointments in advance, just so that way nobody would get suspicious and go, well, this is supposed to be several months long. Why is he only does he only have 5 or 6 in the books? So I always booked out a couple of appointments, but after we had gotten enough evidence on video that to prove conclusively that this was reparative therapy, we obviously decided to end. So I canceled the remaining sessions. I called the clinic and left a voice message saying that a family member had a health crisis out of state, and I canceled the remaining sessions in accordance with their no-show policy.
So fast forward to more recently, you actually get a voicemail from Marcus Bachmann himself saying you owe them money, and if you don't pay, I think it's $75 per session, so $150 total, he's going to turn your account over to a collections agency. Is that right?
Right. I had starting in August, I had received in the mail paper, written bills from the Bachmann Clinic. And at first I thought they were just trying to mess with me, because this story really kind of defined Marcus Bachmann in the national media. He'd been unknown really before that point, but so I figured that they were just trying to get under my skin and, kind of make a little point. But once the bills came, after a couple of months, I realized, oh, maybe they actually are thinking that they're going to try to get money from me. So I called the clinic and left a message, or no, I spoke with the receptionist, and she said that once the charges had been assessed, they could only be removed at the therapist's discretion. And this was on a Wednesday, and she said, if you haven't heard back from your therapist by the end of the week, then you can consider the matter settled, and that the charges will have been revoked.
And did this person you spoke with, he or she, did they know that the investigation and the video, they knew who was calling, right?
I don't know that billing receptionist had made the connection, actually, because she was very, very kind, very cordial to me. So yeah, I'm not sure that she knew who she was talking to. But the end of the week came and went, and then another week passed, and like you said, nothing. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, I get this voicemail from Marcus Bachmann, which needless to say, surprised me quite a bit.
So let's actually take a listen to that voicemail now, so our audience can get a sense of what was said. Let's take a listen.
Hello, John Becker. This is Dr. Marcus Bachmann. I received a message from our billing department asking if we would write off the 2 no-show fees for 7/7/11 and 7/12/11. We will not writing those off, so you do owe those no-show fees, and we would expect payment as soon as possible. Otherwise, we will have to turn it over to collections.
Okay, so then you actually ended up calling, and you spoke directly with Marcus Bachmann, isn't that right?
Yeah, that's correct. The number that he told me to call back was the clinic number, but the number that the call originated from was a number that was not at all related to the clinic. So I thought, I'll try calling that number back instead. And sure enough, it ended up being Marcus Bachmann's home phone number. And so yes, he and I spoke for about 7 minutes on the phone.
And in this, was there any reference made to the investigation, to the fact that you exposed the sham therapy practices that they're doing? I mean, what was that conversation like?
Yes. While the building associate that I spoke with previously, I don't think knew who I was, Marcus Bachmann most definitely did. He he. There was one point in the conversation where I said, Marcus, this is $150. What is this really about? Are you upset with me? What's going on? And I said, we're not asking for any trouble here. I'm just asking for you to lift these fraudulent charges. And he goes, you're not asking for any trouble. You came in here under a lie, under a false pretense, and you're telling me that you don't have an agenda. So he clearly knew who he was talking to, and from the tone of our conversation, it seemed pretty clear that this was still an intensely personal issue for him, even this many months later.
Well, that's the thing, because Ned Flaherty, who sends me great research information all the time, ran some numbers, and he said if this place has about 25 therapists, as they claim to, and if each of them is billing about 20 hours a week, 4.3 weeks per month, and as you know, they charge something around $70-something per session. You're talking about $33,000 a week that this clinic is bringing in. It sounds a little odd for the owner to be personally calling people over $150 when they're bringing in over 30 grand a week. It just doesn't make any sense.
Exactly, and I hadn't heard those numbers, but that they do make perfect sense. And like you said, for such a small amount, it's very very, very out of the ordinary. Especially since I was told that the therapist himself, in my case was Timothy, would be making the call and not Marcus. And I guess that the only explanation I could think of in terms of why he was calling himself was because it must have been a personal thing for him. Because certainly politically, it doesn't make any sense at a time when her campaign is kind of tanking. You'd think that they would want a breath of fresh air rather than relitigating embarrassing public relations battles that from months ago that had already kind of played out in the media. But
Absolutely. Hey, and real quick in the last few seconds, are you going to pay the $150? What's going on with this?
We are not going to pay that money because of the fact that the appointments were canceled in accordance with their stated policies. If Marcus Bachmann, we sent him a cease and desist letter. And if he decides to pursue this further, we'd be happy to take the opportunity to expose the ex-gay agenda in court. Can I add one little other thing quickly? I thought the most interesting part of the conversation Marcus and I had was at one point he made a little off-the-cuff remark, where he said, because he was like, John, very, very condescendingly, like a parent to an errant child. And he said, maybe someday in the future, you and I will be able to sit down and talk about this together. And I didn't think he was serious, but I jumped right on that because I'd also love the opportunity to introduce him to my husband and talk to him about the dangers of ex-gay therapy in person. So who knows? Maybe Marcus and I will get to sit down face-to-face for a chit-chat.
I think that would be the best possible outcome from this entire thing. And hopefully there's video of that if it ever does happen. Incredible stuff. John Becker, Communications Director for Truth Wins Out. Truthwinsout.org is the website. Great to talk to you again. Keep up the good work.